Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Personalized Lifestyle Pearls. I'm Dr. Deanna Minich, and tonight we're going to have an incredibly engaging discussion. In fact, already behind the scenes, I've been talking with our guest, Dr. Tricia Paulson. If you don't know who Dr. Paulson is, she is a naturopathic physician. She has a clinic in Wisconsin, and she does a lot of lecturing on nutrition education for a variety of different health professionals. One of the things that she's really expert in, and I happen to know this because she and I were lecturing a couple of years ago. We went all around the country lecturing all on detox, everything detox. So I know that she and I have this fondness for all things clean, cleansing, detoxifying. So welcome, Trish, to the PLP.
Thank you.
Good to be here with you. And, you and I were just talking a little bit behind the scenes here, how here we are in the midst of the holiday season. People are gearing up, they're going to parties, they're socializing perhaps. And here we are to talk about detox, to get us ready for the new year.
Yes, we are.
Well, I think it's worthwhile to be thinking about it, especially for practitioners who are tuning in, because you may need some time to prepare your patients for an online or an in-person detox program come first of the year when people are really looking for this. Have you found that in your practice that, timing of a detox, whether it's seasonal, first of the year, what have you learned as it relates to when people are most looking to detox?
Yeah, so one thing that's interesting, depending on how long, if it's a program, a detox program, and they can be as short as 10 days or as long as 4 weeks. The one that I run as a group is 4 weeks long. And what's so interesting is trying to find 4 weeks in the calendar year where there's not a food celebration event going on is actually very difficult. So between Thanksgiving and then Christmas, New Year's, then there's Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day. I mean, there's always, so it's very difficult to find that 4 weeks. However, I will say that right after the Christmas holiday time and into New Year's, and people start getting serious about health, and they've kind of done the toxifying prior to there, that is a really good time that people are really, they feel yuck, like, oh, I got to do something, I got to cleanse. It really can be a great time. And you have a 4-week window. If Valentine's Day isn't a big celebration event for those people, you have a 4-week window where you can fit in a 4-week detoxification program. But again, they can be as short as 10 days.
That's a really good point, that they can be modified. They can be personalized to the person because life happens. And even if you have it right smack in the middle of September where you think not a lot is going on, then there's a wedding or a birthday. There's always going to be something. So you just do the best you can. Trish, before we get into the nuts and bolts of doing a group detox, I do want to ask you about this word detox. And I know that probably even some people listening might be thinking, well, what does that really mean exactly? Because it's one of those words it's kind of flimsy. It means a lot of things to many different people. And in fact, it's a highly criticized word in some circles. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of doing a clinical group detox, let's first talk about what we mean by detox. How would you define it?
Yeah, and I would say the perception has definitely changed in my perception of how that word is being perceived, especially in the area I'm in. So I'm in rural Wisconsin, as you know. I'm in a tiny town, 2,000 people. My statement is that we have 1 stoplight and 4 bars. Okay, that's my town. And when I first arrived here, this was 2009, and I hosted my first detoxification program, I really thought, can I use the word detox? Because I think people are going to think it's a drug and alcohol detox. I wasn't sure how the word was going to be perceived. And someone had kind of mentioned, well, maybe you should have used the word cleanse. And for me, I don't know. I think because I'm attached to metabolic detoxification from more of a physiological perspective, I just said, this is my word. I do want it to be a detox program. And if that takes education to the community to really try to let them know exactly what that means. And that's what I want to do. So from my perspective, detoxification is a physiological process of taking toxins in the environment, which there is an abundance of, and trying to eliminate them from the body in a very safe and healthy way, so you're not getting trying to minimize your overall toxic load. So I think of it as a physiological process that goes on in the body.
So that's a good point. So you talk about metabolic detoxification. It's physiological in nature, which means that there's some body process or pathway connected in. But one of the criticisms is that, well, we have ways to eliminate toxins. We are sweating and we are, through urine, bowel movements, we are doing that. So why do we have to change anything?
Right, and I would say yes, our bodies are very well designed to be able to detoxify. I just think in the environment that we're living, give us a hand, like help your body out a little bit, right?
80,000 different chemicals in our environment, right? And
Highly
also,
understudied. Yes, we don't know enough about them. And I loved, it was way back in the 1960s, Rachel Carson, she just kind of said, hey, you know what, if we're going to live amongst all of these chemicals and breathe them in and eat them and drink them, like maybe we should know a little bit more about them. And we really, even over all of those decades, we actually don't know that much about them. And I think there is a lack of ability to really research the long-term effects of the bioaccumulation. You know, we study them as one chemical at a time in a very short period of time, and that's not how we live our lives. We live our lives hopefully for a very long period of time with 80,000 chemicals, you know, in the environment, and not to put on top of that electromagnetic fields and, you know, just an abundance of things. So I just think, you know what, why not help your body out with those physiological processes and make sure they're doing them as efficiently and well as possible.
yeah, you just said a key word for me, and that's efficiently. And because so many people have different enzyme activities because of their genotypes, you know, we hear this word methylation. Methylation is connected to how we get rid of toxins. Not everybody's efficient. And glutathione's another one. We have different efficiencies of these enzymes. So that's what makes us all unique, is having our different genes, which in different environments get expressed differently. So yes, I like that. Trish, you're mentioning the physiological process, and I want to ask you about this. And I believe that you and I are in alignment on this after lecturing with you for a year. But what about the psychological aspects of a detox? So you're talking about physiological metabolic detox. We're going to talk about the gut and the liver and some of the nutrients that we would give. Is there a need for any kind of emotional clearing, or, you know, what about kind of the monkey mind of our negative thinking, or what about toxic people in our lives? What do we do with other forms of toxins that aren't just purely environmental toxins? How do we bring that into it?
What's so interesting is when individuals go through a metabolic detoxification program, and we're focusing mostly on food and nutrients and getting healthier, that there naturally seems to be this emotional change that goes on as well. And I don't know if the body's, I think we can all agree, you and I for sure can agree, that the emotions in the mind and the body are all connected. Right. And so as one area gets healthy, does that make us healthier and more aware to attack other areas as well? And so for some people, I do think detoxification is tidying up a house, decluttering a room, taking separation from a toxic relationship. It's all of these things that that affect our bodies at a cell level, whether it's an emotional toxin or a physical toxin. So it's very interesting. With whichever approach you take, it seems to tumble over into all those other areas as well.
That makes so much sense, considering that, you know, we're a web. And so what we do to our physical body just changes everything else. You and I were talking before we got on about stress, and how we could be giving many different nutrients to help a person to buffer those responses. But if the toxic offender is stress, we do need to get to that root cause, and we do need to approach it. So um, let's dive in. How did you get into group detoxification? And so the title of this personalized lifestyle pearl is really diving into the group experience. And I think that that's something that you and I both share, that you do see patients one-on-one. However, you have evolved in your practice to working with communities of people in person on detox. How did you make that transition into working with the group?
It was more so the group that I was using initially. When I moved to Wisconsin, I had no family or friends here. I'm from Canada. All my family and friends were in Canada. All my husband's family and friends are in Minnesota. We showed up in Wisconsin, no family, no friends, not one single patient. Here we are in this small little town. And I thought, wow, I'm not sure really advertising in the newspaper for a naturopathic doctor is going to be helpful, because I'm not sure anyone in this small town would even know what a naturopathic doctor is. So how do I get the word out? Not so much on naturopathic medicine, but more so on the services that I offer. So I thought, I'm going to host a group detoxification program, and I did call it detoxification program. And what I did is I hosted a free, no obligation, just come hear about the information. Because again, trying to advertise everything that would be involved in a group detoxification program, I thought was quite difficult. How do you fit all of that on a flyer? And so it was my extension to the community to let them know I'm here. These are the services I'm doing. Come see me. And so I did advertise to the community for this group detoxification program. And I met with every single person on a one-on-one basis, which I do for every group detoxification program, so that I can screen them and make sure that they would be a good candidate for the group detox. Because in a group detox, you just don't have that one-on-one connection. So you need to make sure that they're appropriate for the program. So I have them come in, I do body composition testing, I have them fill out a questionnaire, I know about all their medications. And so I have that connection point with them initially. So the first year I hosted it, I had 19 people, which was a pretty good group. And it was really, that was kind of the springboard for word of mouth on the services I was doing. That actually started my practice. And it's a program that I love. And so I've been hosting it every year since.
Fascinating. So that really was your entry point. Do you remember back to that first experience when you hosted it? And what were people signing up for? Was it fatigue? Was it they weren't sleeping well? Was it pain in their bodies? Was it headaches? What were some of I don't know if you can remember back to some of those initial experiences and what you were finding was really helpful for the detox?
Yeah, it was all the above. I would say initially what people are mostly looking for is they want more energy. And who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
So more energy. I never promote it as a weight loss program, but a lot of them will sign up for weight loss. But I would say most interesting is at the end of the program, we always chat and we go through person by person and we say, what was most insightful for you? What did you get out of it? What were your biggest changes? And I'll tell you the number one biggest change that people are surprised. I think they expect to get more energy and they expect to lose weight. And that does happen pretty much straight across the board. But the one that's most surprising to the individuals is they get rid of all of their pain.
Yeah.
And I had a hairstylist who she was in a motor vehicle accident 20 years ago. She has all sorts of hardware, metal in her arm, all the screws and plates and everything. And that's her scissors hand that she's using day in and day out. And she just said, I just assumed I'm always going to have this pain. It's an old accident, it's an old injury. I will just always have this pain. And she said, so it's amazing to me that after 4 weeks, I literally have no pain in that arm right now. So that's always the one that people are most surprised by.
I can attest to that as well throughout my programs. And, even in my immediate family, my mom and dad, my mom is really into health and my dad, not so much. He's kind of a junk food guy. So when I put him on his first detox, when he decided to really show up and do it, on day nine into it, he calls me and he tells me how much his hip pain has been reduced. And he's been hobbling around for years and years. But on day 9, that fast into it, he had a 40 to 50% reduction in his pain. So I really love what you're saying, because it makes me think of my dad and just the quick results people can have just by removing some of these offenders that we have in the environment that we might be eating all the time. So I actually want to get into what you use as your detox. So you and I are talking about it more generally, but what about the food plan? Do you use any kinds of nutrients that you give supplementally? Do you give them an activity plan? You know, kind of what is the course that you give people as they follow the program?
So my group detox program is 4 weeks long. We meet every week, once a week for the 4 weeks. I have in the past mostly have scheduled a meeting date for Thursday. And then I tell them is you have from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to implement. But by Monday, you got to be 100%. Whatever the information is we're covering this week, you have to be all in 100% Monday. So each week is a new set of information, and each week it gets a little more aggressive. I absolutely promote it as a food first program, so they know that throughout the entire 4 weeks, it is all about food. And so the first week, there really is no surprises. It's just eliminating the junk. And I used to call it the Eliminate the Junk Week. And now I call it Stop Being Manipulated by the Food Industry Week, because I think when people know that, oh, I'm being manipulated, you know, when they say, bet you can't just eat one, I say, I bet you're right, because the food industry makes it very purposefully that way so that you can't just eat one. So I call it Stop Being Manipulated by the Food Industry. So week 1 is eliminating all coffee, alcohol, anything artificial, all sugar, and it's all about food. Now, most of the people coming are individuals who, for the most part, feel well. They just want to feel better, right? If they had a lot of health issues, if they were on a lot of pharmaceutical medications, I would say, you know what, you and I, let's just work one-on-one. This is really meant for people who are, for the most part, healthy, want to be more healthy. However, one of the biggest things I find is blood sugar dysregulation.
Yeah.
These are the individuals who get hangry. And so when all of a sudden you talk about a detoxification program and a calorie restricted program, and they know they're going to have to eliminate some foods, there's a little bit of angst in terms of, I can't go that long without eating type thing. What am I going to do without my food? So one of the things I focus on in the first week is doing 5 mini meals throughout the day, which when I'm working one-on-one with people, I realize that doesn't work for everyone. And I am, you know, a fan of time restricted eating or intermittent fasting for some individuals. But for this particular group, I do find that the 5 mini meals throughout the day tends to work best. And the first week, I focus a lot on what I call macronutrient balancing, where we talk about the macronutrients. This is a protein, this is a fat, this is a carbohydrate, and to try to balance and lower the overall glycemic index of the meal. You know, these are combinations that work better versus, you know, the carbohydrate plus a carbohydrate. So we do a lot about blood sugar balancing and trying to get rid of the hangry and that need to eat all the time, and trying to get rid of the addictive food and the caffeine withdrawal and all of that that goes along with it. And people do have some food withdrawal that they are surprised, because I think a lot of people will say, oh no, I'm not addicted to food, until it's taken away. And then they realize, oh wow, that headache, or oh wow, that, you know, food hangover is what I call it. So that's the first week. So then going into the second week, we get a little bit more aggressive in terms of restricted with the food. So then they go into a modified elimination diet. So now it's dairy-free, gluten-free, egg-free, soy-free. Corn has already been taken out in week 1. And now they start doing, I introduce a medical food. And for those of you who may not be familiar with what a medical food is it's actually a food, meaning that there's calories in there. It's macronutrient balance, the one that I use. It does have protein, carbohydrates, and fats. It also has all of the micronutrients in there that has been researched and shown to help support. There's phase 1 detoxification, phase 2 detoxification, and then making sure there's a ample amount of antioxidants for the free radicals that can form in between those phases. And so that they do as a mini meal. And remember, in week 1, they're already eating 5 mini meals. So we just swap out 2 of those mini meals and they do the medical food instead of. So even with such a restricted elimination diet, well, at least they only have to come up with 3 meals. So that makes it a little bit easier. Going into the 3rd week, we get a little bit more aggressive and they start replacing their 3 meals. Now they're going to do 3 medical food servings and 2 meals. The next day, they're going to do 4 medical servings, 1 meal. And then eventually they're doing all of the medical food, and they can still snack on some of the vegetables. It's a restricted list, so food is never taken out completely. They can do a little bit of broth. Some people get the lightheadedness. If they're, there's just not enough salt, they feel they don't get the blood to their head basically. So they can do a little bit of broth. And then in the 4th week, we go reverse. So now they're putting food back in, eliminating the medical food, and they go back to essentially what was week 1. And also at the end of the program is what I really try to promote is it's not detox, now go right back into retox. It's okay, congratulations, you've done all the hard work. It's the end of the detoxification program, but now what do you do for the rest of your life? And we spend a lot of that night talking about where do you go from here? How do you sustain all these great health changes that you've experienced over the last month?
Let's go back to the 1st week.
Sure.
And actually, let's go back to even before the 1st week. When people see 4 weeks, doesn't that sometimes feel a little bit overwhelming? Or are you able to talk about it in the experience of the group, that the group will support you, that it just that 1st week can be a little bit rough, but once we get past that, it's much better. Do you ever do these groups that are, you mentioned 10 days, and I'm just curious if for some people, 4 weeks seems like a lot.
Yes, and there are some people who will come to the introductory night and say, thanks for the information. Either the timing doesn't work for me, I can't do Thursday nights, this month isn't going to work, is there something else I can do? And there's always an alternative. By no means is this the only way to do a detoxification program. And some people, quite frankly, just need some detoxification support long term. They don't necessarily need to do a program per se, but even just, work into their daily routine a little bit of detoxification support. So yeah, there's very many variables and not everybody goes through the 4 weeks. I would say for the individuals who come to the introductory night, it's 95% will sign up for the full program. You almost have to talk them out of it. They're excited about it. They want to do a program. Unless there's something that doesn't fit for them specifically, they're very eager and excited to show up to join.
Terrific. Yeah. And I have found that having social support going into a detox, like from the get-go, like before they've signed up, 3 things that I talk about with people. Number 1, getting your home in order, your space, just your living space, whatever that means for you. Like maybe it's the kitchen or the bedroom and cleaning things up. I also talk about your thought space. And then finally, I talk about your social networks. And I think one of the things that keeps people connected to a detox and even maybe initiating a detox is knowing that they might have a friend going through it, or maybe they can bring their partner, their loved ones. I have just seen that the more that we can include that sense of community, the better it is for everybody, because it's really hard sometimes. And I'm just being honest that if you tried to change your eating and you're in a family of 5, and you have to cook different meals, it's probably 4 weeks seems like a long time. So the more that we can bring this into our larger sphere, I think that, greater compliance and greater outcomes for more.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've done with the introductory night is hosted that 2 weeks before the program actually starts. And what we say at the end of that night is, hey, it doesn't start until 2 weeks, so you have time. Rally up the troops. So if you have a spouse that wants to do this with you, if you have a neighbor, if you have a friend, if you have a cousin, grab grab a co-pilot to, join in with you. And that gives a opportunity for increased word of mouth and for other people to join as well.
Yeah, I really love it. That's one of my favorite parts of doing a group detox is the sharing, the camaraderie, and how people support each other, because inevitably what's going to happen is maybe on day 8, somebody says, uh-oh, I slipped. I didn't realize I had corn in my pasta. Or, I was at a restaurant and I inadvertently, I had this in my food, or I just really craved this and I just decided to have it. And what's really beautiful, what I had seen in a community setting, and I do my detoxes online, is people cheer you on, and through that cheering on, you get back on track and it feels really good. And you don't have that sense of guilt. Like, if I can't do it 100%, I don't want to do it at all. Kind of
right.
that.
Throw your hands up in the air. I failed and I'm out. Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Trish, the other thing I've experienced, and I want to hear your take on this too, is that the first week is the hardest week. And in fact, one of my nutrition mentors, Barb Schultz, she always told me, and this is stuck in my mind, this is branded, that the food that is most difficult for us to give up is probably the one that we most need to give up. Or maybe it's a beverage, whatever is most difficult. It's like, wow, if we could just start there, why are we so connected to it physically or emotionally? So what are some of your tips for that first week of the detox where people are easing in? They may have headaches because they're not drinking their caffeine. Alcohol is a tough one for people because now their social life can be different going through a detox. And sugar is really huge for people, like even teaching them about reading the labels and how much sugar is in everything. So just maybe give us some pearls on that first week, because I think that weeks 2, 3, and 4 to me feel like smooth sailing once you can get past that first week.
Yeah, so people have options. I would say the number one food beverage that people are really hesitant to give up, they're nervous in terms of they don't know how it's going to go. It's usually the first one that they want to put back in again too, that they're not kind of willing to live without, is coffee. That's the biggest one. And so what I like about starting on a Thursday, they receive all the information on a Thursday, but they have until Monday to, approach it how they choose to, and then be implementing at 100% as well as they can come Monday. So some people are the pick the Band-Aid off very slowly. I'm going to decrease coffee very slowly. So we say that's an option. You can do that. Some people are just rip the Band-Aid off and let me suffer through the 3 days of headaches, and they can certainly do that.
That's tough.
What I think really helps is focusing on the blood sugar balancing. So doing the 5 mini meals throughout the day, staying well hydrated. And that's the other thing, is when people sign up for the detoxification program, we give them a information sheet of all the things they can start doing ahead of time. So get your kitchen organized. If you don't have a glass water bottle or a stainless steel water bottle, it's going to be a lot of water. So purchase one of those. If you don't love your chopping knives in the kitchen, it's going to be a lot of food preparation. So you might want to invest in some really good knives. We have an information page that has some good tips that way too. So certainly drinking enough water, making sure they're getting enough water in is important. And we don't do calorie restriction in the first week, because that's a lot to take on, to be hungry on top of it all. We talk a lot about, muscling your way through in willpower, and willpower is an exhaustible resource. Most people will start pretty good with a full battery at the beginning of the day, and then they get worn down by the afternoon, and it can be really hard to kind of push through it and muscle through it at the beginning. And so having food choices already lined up, we talk about bulk cooking, having meals that are easy to grab and go, and certainly not being hungry and not calorie restricting in the first week to help keep that battery a little bit more full, because it does just take a little bit of muscling through it the first week. Absolutely.
Yeah, you gave really great tips. And one of the things I remember from your seminar is you talked about crowding out. So one of the things for the first week might be to focus on the positives, like what can you have? What can you crowd out all those things that you can't have with that's maybe colorful. I like this activity of getting people to try one new food every week and keep them focused on the art of eating, the color of eating, rather than all the things that they can't have through a detox. So I think that has been fun for our groups to look at color and to focus on the positive so that just if we think of the word elimination diet, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a very fulfilling experience. It's like, oh my gosh, this is deprivation. However, I think that we can put a spin on it to make it a bit more enjoyable.
Dairy farmers in Wisconsin, when you tell them gluten-free, dairy-free, their eyes are what's left. And then you go through the food list. Everybody gets a complete food list that shows, hey, look at all the food that's still included on the list. And it was so interesting. There's one lady, she has done our group detox. I think last year was her 4th year. She now does it the last 3 years. Her and her husband have done the group detox. 2 comments she made was very interesting. She said, well, the first time I did the group detox, at the end, you said, oh, and if you want to participate next year. And she thought, well, who would do this twice? I've already done it. Like, why would you do it again? And she says, well, now I get so much more out of it every time I do it. She says, this is just my annual thing. I'm going to do it every year. Like, why? Now I think, why wouldn't you do it every year instead of who would do this twice? She said, the other thing is she's finally at the point, she said, before, if I put a turkey in the oven, it went with potatoes and carrots. Like, what else would you do with a turkey? And these are the things that when you have a large food vocabulary and you have a lot of food experience, you don't realize it, you take it for granted that other people perhaps don't. And so she said, I'm finally at the point now when I put a turkey in the oven, I think, oh, and afterwards I can make turkey and bean soup, or I could do lettuce wraps with turkey, or I could do a salad and put my turkey on top. She says, I have all these other ideas to do with turkey that just naturally come to the top of my head. She said, but really at the beginning, I would have no idea other than carrots and potatoes. What would you possibly do with that turkey? So yes, crowding out and having people think they need recipes. I don't think they need recipes so much as just food ideas. How to put, I remember one lady, she said, but then what do you do with hummus? It would go on a cracker, but you can't have And I said, oh, well, there's carrot sticks and celery sticks. And she thought, oh, I never thought of that. Yeah, I guess you could. Vegetables. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, things that we take for granted when we're around it all the time that we don't realize that other people might not know about or might not come as easily to them.
Oh, that is such a great point. And it really puts us into the mode of being creative and learning about food, learning about our body's response. You and I could go on and on about detox, and I'm sure we will do another personalized lifestyle pearl at some point because this is such an intriguing topic. So you've already given us lots of great wisdom, and hopefully as an act of self-care, people will take this information into the new year and be thinking about how they can start to clean up, whether it's their food, their lives, looking at their emotions, their home. There's always something to be working on. I'm sure that even you, Trish, you and I both, we've been in the detox world for some time, but there's always something, whether it's a HEPA filter on your vacuum or, getting your home tested for mold. There's no end to what we can be doing in the way of being proactive with truly keeping our toxic load to a minimum.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for being on with me tonight. It's been great to talk with you, great to catch up. And one last question. I have something here from Christy who's asking about your detox program. Can people join this virtually, or are you doing this primarily in your practice? It sounds like you need to see everybody and then you assess their entrance into the group, right?
I have not done it virtually. I do really rely on body composition testing because everyone's meal plan is going to be a little bit different. So for example, my husband and I, he does the detox program with me every year. He's 6'1", he weighs 180 pounds. He needs to be eating a little bit differently than me in terms of quantity. So I do take body composition information, and then we come up with specific quantities for each person for the different weeks. Because at one point in time, I do want them to be in a calorie deficit so that they're shrinking the fat cells getting the toxins out of the fat cell. So I do choose to meet with everyone on a one-to-one basis. I haven't done it virtually, but I know you have, and you've had great success. And I absolutely, there'd be no reason why you couldn't.
Yeah, yeah, terrific. Well, thank you so much for being here with me tonight and with all of us that have signed on. I see a number of people here, and I would encourage everybody to leave your questions here so that Dr. Paulson and I can see what you need some answers to. So wishing you a great rest of your holiday season and a joyous and abundant 2019. I'm excited for our next horizon.
Yes,
So
well, thank
thanks
you
so
so
much.
much for hosting, and yes, to you as well.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.